Transmigrated into a cannon fodder in a period novel. On the first day, my filial father gave away the family's entire food ration. Two younger sisters starved to death. The eldest was sold into marriage and died in childbirth. My mother cried herself blind, and I was forced to be a lifelong bloodsucker? As a veteran border guard, could I tolerate this? I went into the mountains overnight to hunt a bear, shot it in the head. The bear gall was worth 300, a year's wages for a city worker. But when I carried back a basket of meat, the look in my filial father's eyes as he stared at the meat sent chills down my spine. When I opened my eyes, the oil lamp was flickering fiercely. The heated brick bed beneath me was scorching hot, sweat beading on my nose. The old house, the period-style heated brick bed, the piano cabinet with peeling paint. I had transmigrated into the Northeast educated youth novel I read last night, becoming the supporting character with the same name, Zhang Hongqi. According to the original plot, the only purpose of our family was to serve as a tragic backdrop for that era. Dad, this is the last bit of cornmeal we have. If you take it all, what will the kids eat tomorrow? Tomorrow I'll go to the production brigade to borrow relief grain. No matter how hard it is for us, we can't let my parents go hungry. Motherly Xiaoji looked distressed, wanting to stop him but not daring to. Father Zhang Xuanzhu was carrying the last half sack of cornmeal out the door. Dad, I'm hungry. 8-year-old second sister Zhang Fongfong tugged at his clothes, but he pushed her away. Stop messing around. You just ate at dark. What are you hungry for? Don't delay me bringing food to your grandparents. They're your real grandparents. My mind buzzed, and I remembered the entire original plot. Filial piety? That's not filial piety. That's rushing to let them suck your blood, suck the blood of your own wife and children. Our family has 6 people, besides mom and dad. I have 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. In these times, every household relies on work points to exchange for food. The Northeast is vast and sparsely populated, so it's not easy to starve to death. But in the original story, second sister Zhang Fongfong and little brother Zhang Ziqing would starve to death this winter. There was only one reason. Zhang Xuanzhu was too filial. Grandparents lived with Uncle Zhang Hongqi's family. The old couple were still strong and could earn work points, so they weren't short of food at all. But grandparents favored the younger son and often found excuses to come and take food from our house. In short, they helped Uncle's family suck our blood. Whenever grandparents asked, Zhang Xuanzhu would borrow if necessary to get food for them. Dad, leave some food for our family. I couldn't help but speak up. Zhang Xuanzhu glared. What? You don't want to be filial to your grandparents? Ungrateful brat. You eat the most in our family. It's your fault second girl doesn't get enough. With that, he carried the food and slammed the door. I stood frozen. Second sister not getting enough is my fault? My stomach growled, hunger burning like fire. That evening's cornmeal porridge was so thin, you could see the bottom of the bowl. I only drank half a bowl, leaving the rest for my younger siblings. The food our family saved by going hungry was all taken to someone else's house. Mom, I'm really hungry. Second sister cried in mother's arms, and little brother joined in. Mother hugged the 2 youngest and cried along. Eldest sister Zhang Lanlan curled up on the con corner, not daring to make a sound. She was 16, mature enough to be heartbreaking. She had given almost all her porridge to the younger siblings. I sat on the Kong, carefully recalling the fate of the family. Second sister and little brother would starve to death in winter. Eldest sister would be married off in spring with the bride price taken by grandma, and she would die in childbirth in her first year of marriage. Mother would cry herself blind, with no money for treatment, and wouldn't last many years. As for me, Zhang Xuanzhu would force me to continue being filial, being sucked dry by grandparents and uncle for life. Before transmigrating, I was a veteran border guard, skilled in combat and marksmanship. But no matter how good my skills, I couldn't rob anyone. No matter how good my marksmanship, where could I use it? I lived in Kaoshan village, outside which was the old forest. Villagers sometimes went into the forest to pick mushrooms or set traps. Hunting. With my marksmanship, I could carve out a way to survive. But there were 2 problems. No gun, no experience. There was only one hunter in Kaoshan village, Zhao Sanqi, who lived at the west end. Mom, I'm going out. Ignoring mother's protests, I put on my tattered cotton jacket and pushed open the door. The cold air of a northeast winter night hit me, chilling to the bone. Stepping through snow that covered my shoes, I crunched all the way to Zhao Sanqi's house. Uncle Sanqi, I want to go into the old forest with you to hunt wild game. Zhao Sanqi was stunned. Patrolling the mountains and hunting was hard and dangerous work. If anyone could get by, who would let their child do this? Hongqi, are you joking with me? Taiju, you 2 go play. He called his son Zhao Taiju over. Uncle, I really want to go into the mountains with you. I have strength. I can carry and lift anything. You can treat me like a pack mule. Before coming, I had thought it through. The only person in the village who could help me was Zhang Hongqi. What does your dad say? Uncle, I'll be 19 this spring. I can decide for myself. Besides, if I always listen to my dad, our family will starve to death. I explained everything clearly. After listening, Zhao Sanchi's face darkened. Beside him, Zhao Taiju wiped his runny nose with his cotton sleeve and said bluntly, Zhang Hongqi's family isn't short of food. I saw them eating white flour steamed buns the other day. Zhang Hongqi was my own uncle. Zhao Taiju had some issues from a high fever as a child. A bit simple, but he never lied. Dad, let Hongqi come with us. We can keep each other company. Didn't you say that opening a bear den alone isn't enough for me to assist? You little brat, what nonsense are you talking? My eyes lit up. Uncle, take me along for the den opening. Bear hibernation is called squatting in the den, and opening the den means hunting hibernating black bears. A bear's gallbladder could sell for 300 or 400 yuan, more than a city worker could save in a year without eating or drinking. Zhao Sanchi looked me up and down, and I stared back steadily. You really want to take this path? Really? But it's hard. I'm not afraid of hardship. I'm afraid of poverty and hunger. All right, you're in. When I left Zhao Sanchi's house, Zhao Taiju pulled a roasted potato from the Kong pit and insisted I take it. I was one of the few peers in the village who would associate with him. Back home, Zhang Xuanju hadn't returned from delivering food. I handed the roasted potato to second sister. Arya, here's a treat. A roasted potato. Second sister was overjoyed but insisted mother take a bite, then stood on tiptoe to offer it to me. Brother, you eat too. I took a small bite. The burnt aroma burst in my mouth. It was delicious. Then eldest sister, then little brother. After going around, the small potato still had more than half left. Zhang Xuanju, you really deserve to die. The next day at dawn, I quietly got up. I only said I was going to play with Zhao Taiju, carried a large basket, packed an axe and rope, and left. No one was wandering around the village. Only Zhao Sanchi with his single-shot rifle and Zhao Taiju with a large basket were waiting for me. His hunting dog Hudu was at their feet. Once in the forest, the snow was deeper. The temperature of -20 to 30 degrees Celsius had frozen a hard crust on the snow, so walking on it was fine. The bear den Zhao Sanchi had found wasn't too far, but it couldn't be reached in a day. Around 4 in the afternoon, we found a sheltered spot and dug a snow cave to spend the night. We heated cornmeal cakes over the campfire, sandwiched with pickled rutabaga, and took a bite. So satisfying. For the night watch, I was assigned the first shift. I held the single-shot rifle. Its barrel came from a Mosin Nagant. 7.62 millimeters full power round. If it hit the head, one shot could kill a bear. The next morning, we arrived at the spot. A hollow tree stump, the opening ringed with icicles and frost. That was from the bear's breathing. When it was time to act, Zhao Sanchi was a bit nervous. Though he was the only hunter in Kaoshan village, this was his first time opening a bear den. He aimed the rifle at the tree hollow, while Zhao Taiju and I each held an elm pole with a knife tied to the front, called a spear knife. Our task was, the moment the bear poked its head out, to use the spear knives to pin its neck from both sides. Throw a small firecracker into the tree hollow, and it crackles and pops. Then a muffled roar explodes. The bear smashes a large chunk of the tree hollow with a furious paw, and its round black head bursts out. Go! The two spear knives thrust out simultaneously, firmly clamping the bear's neck. Bang! Zhao Sanchi pulls the trigger. The Mosin Nagant full-power round blows a hole right through the bear's head, splattering blood and brains all over my face. With a crash, the 300 to 400-pound bear falls face down on the snow, killed in one shot. Without time to celebrate, Zhao Sanchi quickly bleeds and cleans the carcass. Delay would spoil the meat, making it inedible. Wow! An iron gall. Zhao Sanchi excitedly holds up the gall, bluish with a hint of gold, the size of a fist, an iron gall. At the supply and marketing cooperative, it's worth at least 300 yuan. For comparison, a factory worker in the county earns only about 20 yuan a month. The richness of the hunting reward is fully displayed at this moment. Besides the gall, the bear's nose and knees are also precious medicinal materials. Keep the heart and stomach, hang the intestines on a tree as an offering to the mountain god, and feed the rest to Hudu first. The hunting dog has been through life and death with us. We must never treat it poorly. Use an axe to chop off the 4 bear claws, skin the bear, and rub the hide with snow for simple treatment. This bear isn't big, just over 300 pounds, yielding nearly 200 pounds of meat. By the campfire, Zhao Sanchi slices the fatty and lean bear meat from the ribs into thin pieces, skewers them on branches, and roasts them. Soon, it sizzles with oil, and the gamey smell gradually turns into a strange, tantalizing aroma. Sprinkle a little salt. The first bite almost brings tears to my eyes. This body hasn't seen any grease for too long. Heat up cornmeal cakes, sandwich them with the fragrant roasted bear meat, and take a bite of crispy pickled rutabaga. The three of us almost swallow our tongues. Bear meat is heating. After eating, we drink some hot water, and sweat breaks out on our foreheads. The three of us look at each other with strange expressions, two unmarried young men and a widower, all stiff as boards. We'll just have to endure. At dusk, the three of us drag the sled back to Kaoshan village. I carry a large basket of bear meat home. On the way, I've already discussed with Zhao Sanchi. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to the county supply and marketing cooperative to sell it, and split the proceeds according to Hunter's rules. Bringing the meat back, I have my own plans. First, the family has run out of food, so we need something to eat. Second, I want to see just how inhuman Zhang Hongqi can be. Where have you been? You know to come back? I thought you died out there. As soon as I enter, Zhang Hongqi starts cursing. I ignore him and set the large basket in the middle of the room. Oh, so much meat. Where did you get it? Mother exclaims. Where? Big brother brought meat home. We have meat to eat. Little brother rolls off the Kong, supporting himself on the basket and hopping. Mom, I want meat. Second sister looks up pleadingly. Big sister glances over, a hint of joy appearing on her thin face. The whole family gathers around. I went into the old forest with Uncle Sanchi. This is bear meat we hunted today, I tell them truthfully. The Zhang family erupts. This meat is ours, we can eat it. Child, how dare you fight a bear? Big brother is amazing. Mom, I want bear meat. Mother wipes her tears and puts the big pot on the stove. The two little ones hover around the stove, swallowing saliva. Big sister busies herself heating water for me, saying big brother must have suffered and needs to soak his feet. The family suddenly feels that life has taken a turn for the better. But after the initial shock, Zhang Hongqi sits silently on the edge of the Kong, staring blankly at the large basket of bear meat Zhang Hongqi deliberately brought back. Mom, cut more meat. Cut there, that's fatty. The two little ones, Zhang Ziqing and Zhang Fongfong, lie by the basket, directing Li Xiuji on cutting the bear meat. Zhang Hongqi and big sister Zhang Lanlan watch with smiles. Zhang Ziqing is 6, Zhang Fongfong 8. Though they talk like experts, in truth, since birth, they've eaten meat fewer times than the fingers on one hand. What do they know about fatty versus lean? Especially since it's the rarer and more expensive bear meat. But right now, no one cares. Li Xiuji cheerfully follows the little one's directions, cutting wherever they point. As long as it's meat, it'll taste good no matter where it's cut from. Ahem, Xiuji, just cut a little for a taste. We can't eat meat until we're full. Zhang Hongqi finally can't help but speak, frowning. Arya, Lao Si, listen up. Don't eat too much of this meat. Save it to send to your grandparents. They are your own grandparents. If you're not filial, who will be? As they say, a single rat dropping can spoil a whole pot of soup. The family was happily anticipating the meat, but at Zhang Hongqi's words, the room falls silent. Li Xiuji, holding the cleaver, freezes, her face twitching. She forces herself to speak gently. Husband, there's so much meat. Let the children eat their fill for once. Besides, sending half to your parents is enough for them and fifth brother's family for the winter. Zhang Hongqi waves his hand. Don't say that. In life, you have to be thrifty. Our family just needs a taste. Eating too much is wasteful. Sending it to my parents is the right thing. Besides, my parents probably won't eat it either. They'll definitely sell it and save the money for Hongqi's future wife. What the hell? Your own children eating it is wasteful, but sending it to your parents and brother's family is the right thing? Bah, you bastard. Zhang Hongqi gets more excited as he talks, even moving himself. If Zhang Hongqi didn't know the real situation of his grandparents and uncle's family, watching Zhang Hongqi's animated gestures, he might have believed him. Zhao Taizhu saw them eating white flour steamed buns, but that was just a coincidence. Zhang Hongqi knows clearly that Uncle Zhang Wansai's family not only lacks nothing, but has even saved a lot of money. That's a considerable sum, 4 to 500 yuan. And this is 1,977, 4 to 500 yuan. Heaven knows how much blood the old couple has sucked from Zhang Hongqi's family and his 3 aunts' families. Because of this, Zhang Hongqi's 3 aunts all live unhappily, with constant family conflicts, each unable to hold their head high in their in-laws' homes. Just a year or two later, Zhang Hongqi's grandparents used that 4 to 500 yuan to buy a job slot for Zhang Hongqi, completely shedding their farmer status and becoming wage-earning workers. The whole family moves to the county seat, becoming city dwellers who eat commodity grain. And at that time, Zhang Hongqi's grandparents say the city house is too small to accommodate everyone, so they move in with him and his father. From then on, All the grain and money earned by father and son through hard farming falls into the grandparents' hands, eventually ending up with Zhang Hongqi's family, who are already city folk. As for why only Zhang Hongqi and his father are left in the family, second sister and little brother starved to death last winter. Grandmother, coveting the bride price, forced big sister to marry, and she died in childbirth in the first year. Li Xiuji, heartbroken and ill, had no money for treatment and died of illness. Grandparents secretly held on to 400 to 500 yuan, watching their eldest daughter-in-law die of illness without spending a cent. Under such circumstances, Zhang Hongqi expects them to help him marry? Dream on. Knowing full well what Zhang Xuanzhu is like, Zhang Hongqi gives a fake smile and snatches the cleaver from Li Xiuji. Marry? Marry whom? With our family barely able to drink cornmeal gruel, marrying any girl would be ruining her. I don't want a wife now. I just want to eat meat. Hongqi, how can you talk like that? Don't cut so much. Leave more for your grandparents. Oh, you little bastard. Why won't you listen? Zhang Xuanzhu watches Zhang Hongqi cutting large chunks of meat, as if the cleaver is cutting into him, hopping with anxiety. Whoever brings back the meat calls the shots. Zhang Hongqi wasn't going to keep indulging him. If he let that bastard father have his way, the family would surely end up ruined just like in the book. You little bastard, are you rebelling? Fine, fine, just this one meal. Eat up, eat up. This family will be eaten to the ground sooner or later. Zhang Xuanzhu hopped around and yelled. He had originally wanted to grab the cleaver from Zhang Hongqi's hand. But Zhang Hongqi suddenly turned his head, his eyes cold and unfamiliar, just like the butcher sizing up a fat pig when the production team slaughtered the New Year's pig. That scared Zhang Xuanzhu. Since Zhang Hongqi had the cleaver, he decided to cook the meat. First, he cut the fatty belly into pieces, added a little water to the washed iron pot, and slowly rendered the fat. Once the water evaporated, the oil came out. Then he sliced the rib meat with both fat and lean into long, thin pieces, stir-fried them in the pot. Amid the sizzling sounds, the whole family couldn't help swallowing their saliva. Wild game always has a gamey smell. To make it tasty isn't easy, and different game requires different methods. But in the end, there are only a few tricks. Soak it in cold water beforehand to draw out the smell. Soak it for a whole day and night, and the gamey smell will be much reduced. When cooking, use plenty of oil and seasonings. If you're willing to add enough oil and spices, the taste won't be too bad. But Zhang Hongqi's family, messed up by Zhang Xuanzhu, couldn't even afford cornmeal porridge. How could they have oil and seasonings? On the stove, there was only a bit of salt. However, bare fat is a good thing. At first, when it was slowly rendering, the whole room smelled of burnt pig hair. But once the fat was rendered out, it turned into a strange, burnt fragrance. Actually, apart from Zhang Hongqi, no one in the family thought there was any strange smell. In these times, no one had any oil in their stomachs. With both oil and meat, who would dare complain about a strange smell? It was all meat fragrance. When the big pot of bear meat was cooked, the whole family, old and young, all wolfed it down with bowls, too busy to talk. Zhang Xuanzhu had said earlier that eating it was wasteful, but he himself moved his chopsticks faster than anyone. Li Xiuji and the three little ones also forgot about manners. Knowing they could only eat this meat once, they ate as much as they could. Whatever was left would all be sent to someone else's house by Zhang Xuanzhu. Zhang Hongqi, holding his bowl and shoveling meat into his mouth, deliberately said, "This meat isn't all ours. Uncle Sanchi gets the bigger share." We hurried back from the deep forest to the village, and we were too tired to bother moving it back and forth. The meat we're eating tonight, we'll have to explain to Uncle Sanchi tomorrow and deduct it when we split the shares. Li Xiuji and the three little ones had no mind for such matters. Anyway, whether the share was big or small, the rest would have to be sent to Zhang Hongqi's house. The important thing was to finish what was in their bowls. Zhang Xuanzhu squinted at Zhang Hongqi and curled his lips in disdain. You little bastard, trying to play mind games with your dad? You're still too green. This meal really let the family indulge. The most exaggerated were Zhang Fangfang and Zhang Ziqing, the siblings competing over whose belly was rounder. Zhang Hongqi directly placed the remaining bear meat in the snow pile in the yard outside. In the winter of northeast China, nature itself is a giant freezer. For any food that needs freezing, just bury it in the snow pile in the yard. At temperatures of minus 20-something degrees Celsius, nothing goes bad. People who haven't had meat for a long time have no oil in their stomachs. If they suddenly eat greasy food, they're sure to get diarrhea. Zhang Hongqi's family had a rough night, running to the outhouse many times. But this is normal. After eating meat a few more times, they'll gradually adapt. Despite the diarrhea, the nourishing effect of bear fat and meat is not lacking at all. When they got up the next day, Everyone had rosy cheeks, looking much better than before. Worried about something, Zhang Hongqi got up early and deliberately went to dig in the snow pile where the bear meat was stored. It was indeed gone. "Dad, get up. Someone stole our bear meat." They didn't even leave the basket. Zhang Hongqi's shout woke up the whole family. Li Xiuji immediately panicked. It didn't matter if they had nothing to eat themselves. But that basket of bear meat, Zhao Sanqi had the larger share. If it was lost, they'd have to compensate him. "Dad, wake up. Someone stole our bear meat." "Who stole it? How could they be so mean?" Zhang Fangfang and Zhang Ziqing, the two younger ones, cried in anxiety and pushed Zhang Xuanju, who was lying on the kong. Only the early maturing eldest sister, Zhang Lanlan, pursed her lips silently and curled up in the corner of the kong. "What's all the noise? Yelling and screaming early in the morning, mourning for the dead. What's stolen? I sent it to your grandparents' place in advance. All of you are as greedy as starving ghosts. If I left it at home, who knows how much you'd eat?" Zhang Xuanju lay on his side and waved his hand impatiently. Zhang Hongqi pretended to be anxious. "Dad, I said last night that the meat isn't just ours. Uncle Sanqi has the bigger share. How could you send it all to my uncle's house?" "Bullshit." Zhang Xuanju sat up with a whoosh. "Hongqi, no matter how capable you are, it's only right to honor your grandparents. Look at you, lying for a little meat. Let me tell you, when I sent the meat, your grandparents said they wouldn't eat a bite of it. They'll exchange it all for money to get you a wife in the future. Hongqi, your grandparents care about you. How can you be so unfilial?" Zhang Hongqi sneered inwardly, put on his tattered cotton jacket, and headed for the door. "What are you doing? The meat is gone. I have to explain to Uncle Sanqi." "Still lying? Hongqi, I'm telling you, if you dare go to your grandparents, I'll break your legs." Zhang Hongqi didn't bother with Zhang Xuanju, who was yelling and screaming on the kong. He had already discussed it with Zhao Sanqi on the way back, all to make a scene for that bastard father and the bunch of vampires. Regarding how to get rid of Zhang Xuanju, his grandparents, and his uncle's family, Zhang Hongqi had been thinking it over these past few days. According to his plan, it had to be done in 2 steps. The first step was to fall out with his grandparents and uncle's family, preferably to sever the relationship. The second step was to find a way to take his motherly Xiuji and his younger siblings to move out, or kick Zhang Xuanju out and live separately. Neither step was easy, but to change his and his family's miserable fate and to live a good life in this special era, Zhang Hongqi had to go through with it. Seeing his eldest son leave without looking back, Zhang Xuanju couldn't sleep either. He got dressed and started cursing. No one in the family dared to say a word. After all, the bear meat wasn't lost, which was the most important thing. Zhang Xuanju was convinced that Zhang Hongqi was unwilling to offer the bear meat to his parents, so he made up a lie. Was the bear meat really Zhao Sanqi's? Would he trust Zhang Hongqi to carry it back? Even if he did, would he dare to eat it? His eldest son had always been honest and well-behaved, but now he dared to lie to him. What had gotten into him? While Zhang Xuanju was sitting on the edge of the kong brooding, Zhao Sanqi's voice came from the yard. "Brother Xuanju, are you home? Brother, why are you here? I came to apologize to you and sister-in-law. I'm sorry, I didn't ask clearly before taking Hongqi into the deep forest. I should have gotten your permission first. That kid made the decision himself. We only found out when he came back. As long as you and sister-in-law don't blame me. I heard from Hongqi that he stored the bear meat at his uncle's place. Yeah, don't laugh at me, Brother Xuanju, but we patrol hunters have our own rules. It's fine to eat and drink a bit at home, but before the shares are divided, the prey shouldn't be touched by unrelated people. How about we go together and get that bear meat back? After dividing the shares, your family's portion can be handled however you want." "Fine." Seeing that Zhao Sanqi had indeed come looking for him, Zhang Xuanju didn't hesitate. On the contrary, he felt that his eldest son hadn't lied. Being willing to support his grandparents was more important than anything. As for that large basket of bear meat, Zhang Xuanju swore confidently that it would be absolutely safe with his parents. Why? Because his parents doted on their eldest grandson. The old couple said they would sell all the bear meat and use the money for Hongqi's future wife. Zhang Hongqi and Zhao Taizhu, the two young brothers, waited by the roadside outside the yard, definitely planning to go along to Zhang Wansai's house. Zhang Xuanju glanced at them with some confusion. It was fine for them to come along, but why was Sanqi's silly son carrying a hunting rifle in his arms? The snow underfoot crunched as Zhang Xuanju boasted to Zhao Sanqi all the way about how filial he was to his parents, and how much his parents doted on his children. Zhao Sanqi responded cheerfully. To be fair, Zhang Xuanju had a decent reputation in the village, and many praised him for his filial piety. After all, a few nice words cost nothing, right? In the past, Zhao Sanqi would have thought that Zhang Xuanzhu and his parents were a model of maternal kindness and filial piety, something to envy. But now, after hearing Zhang Hongqi's words, he had doubts about this so-called filial piety. Regardless, when they got to Zhang Hongqi's house and saw whether they were willing to return the bear meat, they would know the truth. But before they even reached the gate of Zhang Hongqi's yard, about 30 or 40 meters away, Zhang Xuanzhu, who had been chattering non-stop, suddenly fell silent. Because he smelled a familiar burnt aroma in the air. He had smelled that burnt aroma last night, when his eldest son was rendering bear fat. "Brother Xuanzhu, why aren't you walking forward?" Zhao Sanqi's face held a faint smile as he stared at Zhang Xuanzhu, who had abruptly stopped. "Well, Sanqi, couldn't you give me a little of that bear meat in advance?" Zhang Xuanzhu's smile froze, and he forced it back into place, barely managing to keep it up. Zhao Sanqi let out a strange cry. "I wouldn't dare. Brother Xuanzhu, you don't understand the rules of us who go into the deep woods. It's fine to eat and drink a bit at home, but if outsiders mess with it, that breaks the rules and offends the taboos. Brother Xuanzhu, think about it. If we offend the taboos, the mountain god will punish us. We who go into the deep woods, to put it bluntly, are tying our lives to our belts and begging the mountain god for food. If we anger the mountain god, how can we keep eating this meal in the future? Brother Xuanzhu, didn't you just say that Hongqi's grandparents promised not to touch the bear meat and would save it all to exchange for money for Hongqi's wife? It's still early, so my uncle and aunt definitely haven't gone to the supply cooperative yet. It's certainly fine, not breaking any rules or taboos. Let's go, Brother Xuanzhu, what's wrong? Why aren't you walking forward? Hey, who's stewing meat early in the morning? It smells so good. The whole street smells like meat." Zhao Taizhu, holding the rifle in his arms, after being nudged by Zhang Hongqi's elbow, exaggeratedly delivered his prepared line. Zhang Hongqi quickly chimed in. "No kidding, it really smells damn good. Eating meat early in the morning. In the old days, you'd have to be at least a local rich man. Poor grandpa and grandma, they have bear meat but won't eat it, insisting on saving it to exchange for money for my wife. I'm useless, I'm unfilial. After we split the shares, I must make a bear meat meal for grandpa and grandma. Right, Dad? Right what? Grandpa and grandma are probably already eating it." In just a few words, Zhang Xuanzhu's forehead was covered in sweat. Without a word, he rushed ahead toward Zhang Hongqi's house. Zhang Hongqi's face turned cold, and he exchanged a glance with the astonished Zhao Sanqi. "Uncle, I didn't lie to you, did I?" "Sigh, Hongqi, don't make too big a scene. Forget it, let's go over too." Zhao Sanqi let out a long sigh. What kind of scumbags can come out of a good place like Kaoshan village? Meanwhile, Zhao Taizhu, holding the rifle behind them, wiped his runny nose with his hand and grinned foolishly. Before coming, Zhang Hongqi had told him there would be something interesting to watch. In the bitterly cold winter, staying cooped up all day with no entertainment. If there's something interesting to watch, what else is there to think about? Just grin and laugh. "Dad, Mom, what are you doing? Hongqi, why did you take out all the meat?" Before even reaching the gate of Zhang Hongqi's house, they heard Zhang Xuanzhu's surprised and desperate voice from the yard. Xuanzhu, why are you back?" "Well, your father and I thought, with so much meat, it would be a shame to sell it all. So we'd render some oil and keep it for the new year," came the voice of Zhang Hongqi's grandmother, old Mrs. Li. "Why are you wasting words with the eldest? I'm craving meat, I want to eat some, so what? Xuanzhu, you're not happy for me, your father, to have a bite of meat?" Old man Zhang was even more assertive, not even salting it. His eldest son was filial and did as he was told. Why should he hide? Zhang Hongqi's voice followed. "Big brother, why are you here? This meat is really fragrant. When it's cooked, we'll have a couple of drinks. Last time, Mom asked about a match for Lan Lan, and there's news. The other side is willing to offer a bit more betrothal gift. We'll discuss it slowly later. Although he beat his first wife and drove her away, she's willing to change. If it's suitable, just marry her off quickly." Hearing his second uncle mention arranging a marriage for Zhang Lan, Zhang Hongqi's mind flashed with the image of his younger sister's thin, frail body curled up on the con corner. She was only 16, just starting her third year of middle school. Big sister Lan was quiet and gentle, heartbreakingly considerate, enduring her own hunger to give the little cornmeal porridge to her younger siblings. Seeing that Zhang Hongqi had stayed in the forest all night, she didn't even care about the joy of having meat at home. She first boiled hot water for him to soak his feet, caring for him as the eldest brother. Thinking about how big sister Lan was being forced into marriage, bullied by her husband's family from the moment she entered the door, beaten every few days, and finally kicked in the belly by her man when she was about to give birth, dying in childbirth. Zhang Hongqi's mind buzzed, and completely exploded. Why? A good girl, at the age for school. Why are you forcing her to marry? So you knew that the man's first wife was beaten away? Just for that betrothal gift, you have to push her into a fire pit? Whoever wants the betrothal gift, why don't they marry instead? Why must you force her? Just because her father is a worthless filial son? Just because her whole family are muddled honest fools? Just because you're used to ganging up and sucking blood? Huh, damn it all. Bastards, I'm done pretending. Zhang Hongqi didn't even know where such anger came from. He was just a transmigrator into a book. He wasn't Zhang Lanlin's real big brother. He was a substitute. Her real big brother didn't dare to interfere in this matter. But Zhang Lanlan cared about him, remembered him, soaked his feet. She called him Big Brother. In a daze, somehow, Zhang Hongqi found the rifle in his hands. Ignoring Zhao Sanqi's exclamation and Zhao Tieju's laughter, Zhang Hongqi rushed to the open yard gate, raised the rifle, and fired a shot into the air. Bang! I'd like to see which bastard dares to marry my sister. This shout was even louder than the crisp gunshot. What's going on? Why is there a gunshot? Is that a gun in Hongqi's hand? Where did he get a gun? What is this little brat up to? In Zhang Hongqi's yard, chaos erupted. Zhao Sanqi quickly rushed over from behind, grabbing Zhang Hongqi's arm, trying to take the rifle away, but no matter how hard he pulled, he couldn't get it. Luckily, this thing was a bolt action. You had to load a bullet after each shot, or it would accidentally discharge. Hongqi, listen to uncle, give me the gun. It's useless for you. Give it to me. That's not what we agreed on before. Zhao Sanqi was truly scared. If that shot from Zhang Hongqi hadn't been fired into the air, but at the people in the yard. Stiffly turning his head, Zhang Hongqi stared with bloodshot eyes and said hoarsely, "Uncle, I'm sorry." His clenched hand finally loosened. Zhao Sanqi breathed a long sigh of relief. This kid had been driven mad by anger. Oh, this bear meat was hunted by my dad, and it hasn't been divided yet. How come your family has already stewed it? TSK. And there's this big pot of oil. You've rendered all the fat, haven't you? You're breaking the rules, violating our hunter's taboo. Zhang Hongqi, you're the head of the family. Give us an explanation. If it's not satisfactory, blood will be shed today. Well, honest folks are truly reliable. Even after a gunshot, Zhao Taiju is still following the script. Taiju, what's going on? Do you want your mother and me to live in peace or not? Old Zhang was panicked too, but he was quick-witted. Seeing that terrifying gun fall into Zhao Sanqi's hands, he snapped back to his senses. Dad, it's not what you think. Listen to me. Listen to you, my ass. Your son blocked our door and shot at me, and I'm supposed to listen to you? Bah, you unfilial wretch. Old Mrs. Li was scared out of her wits, but seeing her husband gain the upper hand, she quickly came to her senses too. She sat on the ground, throwing a tantrum. What sin did I commit in my past life to give birth to an unfilial son? Heaven is punishing me. Why doesn't it strike me dead with lightning? Then I'd be at peace, and the kids would be at peace too. Zhang Xuanzhu, seeing this, quickly knelt before old Mrs. Li and slapped himself, not daring to be unfilial. The Zhang Hongqi family was terrified, and his wife's pants were even wet. But seeing Zhang Hongqi, who had just fired the gun, standing dumbfounded at the yard gate, they lost their fear. The psychological advantage built up over the years instantly erupted. Zhang Hongqi, amid his wife's screams and curses, picked up a wooden stick from the base of the yard wall, determined to teach his eldest brother's disobedient son a lesson. As for what Zhao Taiju had just shouted, none of the family took it to heart. Who would take a fool's rambling seriously? Just as Zhang Hongqi was charging over menacingly with the stick, Zhao Taiju panicked. This bastard, why isn't he following the script? You bunch of meat thieves, and you're still acting tough. There are 2 big iron pots in the yard, one rendering oil, one stewing meat. That's all from us 3 risking our lives in the deep forest. What right do you have to eat it? When an honest man gets stubborn, he's scarier than any street thug or village punk, especially when there's a gun at hand. Hey, Zhang Hongqi, are your ears stuffed with donkey hair? I'm talking to you, can't you hear me? Zhao Sanqi didn't guard against his own honest son. Ignored, Zhao Tieju's anger maxed out. He snatched the rifle from his father's hand and aimed the dark muzzle directly at the approaching Zhang Hongqi. Thud! The stick hit the ground. Taiju, uncle was wrong, just joking around. Don't let it go off. Hey, Sanqi, hold Taiju back. Did Zhang Hongqi realize he was wrong? No, he was just scared. Zhang Hongqi knew exactly what this bastard was up to. But the gun shouldn't be in Zhao Tieju's hands. Taiju, give me the gun. Let me see who's planning to sell my sister for money. Strangely enough, Zhao Sanqi couldn't get the gun from Zhao Taiju, but Zhang Hongqi could easily take it. Zhang Hongqi was scared twice in a row. Even when the rifle was in Zhang Hongqi's hands, he didn't dare act up. Fortunately, the earlier anger had passed. Zhang Hongqi just carried the rifle and strode into the yard. As he passed Zhang Hongqi, he glanced at him, making the bastard flinch. Dad, this meat hasn't been divided yet. You said Grandpa and Grandma wouldn't eat a bite or touch a piece. Now what? Don't you see what state Grandpa and Grandma are in? And you're still thinking about the meat? Come over and kneel to Grandma right now. Don't let her lie in the snow anymore. I'll kneel for you. Who the hell wants to kneel? I won't. Dad, if you don't understand what I'm saying, let Uncle Sanchi explain it to you. Old Mrs. Li had just learned from her eldest son, who was slapping himself while explaining what was really going on with the big basket of bear meat. Hearing that Zhao Sanchi was asking for it back, she wailed even louder. First, she didn't want to bear the name of thief. Too shameful. Second, so much meat, and bear meat that ordinary people never get to taste. She couldn't bear to give it up. Does throwing a tantrum work? Yes. At least in old Mrs. Li's view, it did. This bear meat was a gift from my eldest son. If you have a problem, take it up with him. As for whether her eldest son's family would end up with insurmountable debts, she didn't care. What? Could Zhao Sanchi really drive his eldest son's family to death? Seeing the scene in the yard, Zhao Sanchi chuckled, said nothing, and just stood with his arms crossed watching the show. Whoever lies in the snow will get cold. When they can't stand it anymore, they'll get up on their own. Early in the morning, with gunshots and wailing at Zhang Hongqi's house, even though it was winter, the yard gate was crowded with onlookers. The village party secretary and production team leader were both alarmed and came over to see what was going on at Zhang Hongqi's. Seeing so many onlookers, old Mrs. Li was even more unwilling to get up, lying in the snow and throwing a tantrum. Howling loudly, Zhang Hongqi's wife followed suit, rolling on the ground with her mother-in-law. The onlookers outside grew even more excited. What's going on? Old Zhang's wife, if you don't want to live, go find a crooked tree outside the village. Don't ruin our village's feng shui. The party secretary was an old revolutionary and knew all the big and small matters in the village. He knew exactly what kind of people Zhang Hongqi's family, old Zhang, and old Mrs. Li were. As for Zhang Xuanju, the old secretary didn't even know how to describe him. His kids were crying from hunger, but he insisted on carrying all the grain to his younger brother's house, which wasn't short of food, and then went to borrow relief grain himself. That relief grain was meant for people who couldn't survive. What the hell were you, Zhang Xuanju, butting in for? The old secretary had told old Zhang and old Mrs. Li many times before, and even advised Zhang Xuanju in person, but no one listened. Since it was their family affair, the old secretary could only watch. Now seeing old Mrs. Li leading the charge, with Zhang Hongqi's family joining in, he naturally had no kind words. Uncle, I risked my life hunting a black bear in the deep forest, but the meat ended up at Zhang Hongqi's house. It's almost cooked now. What should I do? Zhao Sanchi's complaint drew exclamations from the crowd outside. They really hunted a black bear. A black bear can knock a person flying with one paw and sit a strong man to death. Hunting that thing is truly risking one's life. What was Zhang Hongqi's family thinking, daring to steal meat that someone risked their life for? Everyone shut up. Stop your wailing. What exactly happened? Explain clearly. With the old secretary's roar, the yard and its surroundings fell silent. Then Zhang Hongqi stepped forward and, without exaggeration, told the whole story as it happened. He even revealed that the last bit of cornmeal had been taken by Zhang Xuanju to Zhang Hongqi's house. He didn't forget to mention that old Mrs. Li and Zhang Hongqi's family wanted to sell his younger sister Zhang Fangfang as a wife. Although old Mrs. Li and Zhang Hongqi's wife kept denying it, even the onlookers could see that what Zhang Hongqi said was probably true. Old Mrs. Li and her husband, along with their precious son's family, already had a bad reputation in the village. After this scandal, they were utterly disgraced. How could the grandparents be so heartless? How could the father be so unreasonable? And they want to sell their own granddaughter to an old man who beat his wife to death. Isn't that illegal? Zhang Xuanju, I don't have a son like you. Old Zhang saw things going wrong and tried to be unreasonable, directly severing ties with his eldest son in front of the whole village. Zhang Hongqi was overjoyed, but then Zhang Xuanju thudded to his knees again. The old party secretary saw they were about to stir up trouble again and immediately started cursing. Handle your own family affairs behind closed doors. First, give an explanation for Zhao Sanchi's bear meat. Old party secretary, my son Hongqi also had a share in hunting the bear. It can't all be credited to Zhao Sanchi, right? At the critical moment, Zhang Xuanju chose to defend his parents and younger brother's family. Zhang Hongqi sneered inwardly. I gave you a chance, but you didn't take it. Don't cry later. Zhao Sanchi snorted. Brother Xuanju, the kid Hongqi just helped me carry and lift things. But he didn't contribute much. Even if we split the spoils, he wouldn't get this much bear meat. Besides, we haven't divided yet, right? What did I tell you before we came? What you're doing breaks the rules. Will I dare to go into the mountains again? What? Have I offended you somehow? Do you want me to die in the deep forest? Zhang Hongqi is the only hunter in the whole village. Whatever he says about rules, others just listen to his talk. Don't say that, brother Hongqi. It's all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Forming a life-or-death grudge with Zhang Hongqi. Not only Zhang Xuanzhu wouldn't dare, but old Zhang, Li Laotai, and Zhang Hongxi's family wouldn't dare either. Zhang Hongqi is a hunter. He has a gun. After a ruckus, under the mediation of the old party secretary, things were barely settled. Whether it was the rendered bear fat or the cooked bear meat, all of it, along with the leftovers, was sent to Zhang Hongqi's home. It seemed like returning the goods to the owner, but in reality, whoever delivered the bear meat felt like they were parading through the streets, utterly humiliating. As for breaking rules and taboos, the old party secretary said it was feudal superstition and couldn't be allowed, so he had old Zhang, Li Laotai, and Zhang Hongxi's family publicly apologized to Zhang Hongqi to settle the matter. Zhang Hongqi reluctantly agreed. Catching the old party secretary's ambiguous smile, he shuddered. Fourth grandpa, other things can be discussed, but they want to sell my sister. You have to intervene. Living in the same village, even if not related by blood, they could still claim kinship. By seniority, Zhang Hongqi called the party's secretary fourth grandpa. You little bastard, how can you slander your grandparents? Your grandparents dote on Dyer. How could they sell her? Before anyone else could speak, Zhang Xuanzhu got anxious. Fine then, in front of fourth grandpa, have them give a guarantee. Get lost. What guarantee? From now on, I don't recognize you as my son, and don't meddle in our family's affairs. Well, Zhang Hongqi had originally planned to sever ties with old Zhang and Li Laodai first, but unexpectedly, he cut cleanly in one go. After this uproar, Zhang Hongqi barely achieved one of his two goals. Zhang Xuanzhu cursed his eldest son for being unfilial, directly severed ties, and wouldn't let him come home. Zhang Hongqi moved into Zhao Sanqi's house, bunking with Zhao Taizhu, quite content. He had escaped the fire pit himself, but what about his younger siblings and mother? With a worthless father like Zhang Xuanzhu, the family would eventually fall apart. Zhang Hongqi thought it over carefully and roughly formed a new idea. Regardless, with this bear as a foundation, at least his second sister and little brother wouldn't starve to death. As for his eldest sister, now that the whole village was buzzing, Li Laotai and the others probably wouldn't dare to sell her off so hastily, right? In Zhang Hongqi's view, it was selling. Whatever bride price, all bullshit. They were just spending money to buy a woman to take home, to be beaten, abused, and bear children. Hongqi, settle down and don't overthink it. Your father's anger will subside in a few days. Uncle, I finally severed ties. I'm not going back. You stubborn kid. This commotion delayed the trip to the county supply cooperative by a day. Early the next morning, Zhang Hongqi followed Zhao Sanqi and his son, driving a horse-drawn cart borrowed from the brigade, straight to the county seat. At the supply cooperative, as soon as they heard about selling a bear, even the director was alarmed and received them personally. Winter in the deep forest is tough, but winter wild game is the easiest to hunt all year. Especially things like pelts. The colder the weather, the better the quality. Hunters who patrol the mountains bring their game to the supply cooperative to exchange for money. It's normal business, not related to speculation or profiteering. But with the freezing cold, many people weren't willing to make a special trip to the county. The township supply cooperative could also buy. Moreover, many old hunters had their own channels, long-standing connections, so the county cooperative couldn't compete. That's why the supply cooperative staff were so enthusiastic when Zhang Hongqi and the other two came to sell the bear. Not many hunters could or dared to hunt bears. Anyone who managed to kill a bear was definitely an experienced old hunter. Building a good relationship with such people meant that if they had future gains from the mountains, they would surely come back here. The bear gallbladder wasn't too big, but it was a top-grade iron gall. After weighing, it sold for 432 yuan. The bear hide, being raw, couldn't fetch a high price and sold for 300 yuan. As for the bear nose, bear kneecaps, and over 100 jin of bear meat, together they sold for 325 yuan. In total, the three of them earned 1,057 yuan from one trip into the mountains. Not only Zhao Taizhu but even Zhao Sanqi was stunned. What did over 1,000 yuan mean in the rural northeast in 1977? Take Kaoshan village for example. Scour the whole village, and you might not scrape together that much money. A city worker's monthly salary was only over 20 yuan. This 1,000 plus was enough for a worker to earn for over 3 years without spending a cent. Dad, I want fried dough twists. And sticky bean buns. Zhao Taizhu, eyeing the thick stack of banknotes, started pointing at the goodies in the supply cooperative counter. "You little rascal, what's the rush? Whatever you want to eat, just get it. Hongqi, you pick two." Having a father like Zhao Sanqi, who never dampened spirits, was probably Zhao Tieju's greatest fortune in life. The three of them left the supply cooperative loaded with goods. Driving the cart back, Zhao Taiju grumbled that all those tempting goodies required ration tickets. Even with money, it was useless. It was the supply cooperative director, trying to curry favor, who secretly helped exchange some cloth tickets. But Zhao Sanqi and his son had no use for them, so Zhang Hongqi took them all to buy cloth. He planned to have Li Xiuji make new clothes for his younger siblings with the cloth, but it was only enough for one set. "Hongqi, this share is yours. Count the money to see if it's right." On the way back, Zhao Sanqi, driving the cart, handed Zhang Hongqi a stack of money. When hunting wild game in the deep forest together, there were rules for dividing the proceeds. Zhao Sanqi, as the old hunter who found the bear den, counted himself as 3 shares. The single-shot rifle counted as 2 shares, and Zhao Taiju and Zhang Hongqi each counted as 1 share. Strictly speaking, the hunting dog Hudu should also count as a share, but since they didn't use it for opening the bear den, Zhao Sanqi didn't include it. As for the expenses at the supply cooperative, Zhao Sanqi covered them all. Zhang Hongqi went into the mountains once and got 150 yuan. In contrast, a normal farming family with enough labor working all year might not even save 20 or 30 yuan. In those days, people's common wish was simply not to starve. Zhang Hongqi didn't stand on ceremony. He took the money and put it in his pocket. This money would be useful. He needed to get a gun first. Zhang Hongqi was an excellent shot, but he couldn't explain that. No one would believe him. With only one single-shot rifle, the shooter had to be Zhao Sanqi. Zhang Hongqi wasn't the only one wanting to get a gun. Zhao Taiju also wanted one. The three had discussed it the night before. On the way back from the county, they would make a detour to a neighboring township to buy guns. Although guns and hunting weren't banned in those days, decent guns weren't cheap. At least Zhang Hongqi and the others, having just hunted a bear, couldn't afford them. So they had to buy single-shot rifles from other hunters. As the saying goes, among 10 hunters who patrol the mountains, 9 die and 1 is injured. That's certainly an exaggeration, but the danger of venturing into the deep forest to hunt wild game is definitely not low. The family selling the gun had their head of household encounter a wolf in the mountains, which bit off one of his legs. Fortunately, his companion was reliable, so he managed to escape with his life. But the man was crippled and could no longer make a living as a hunter, so he had to sell his gun and dogs. According to Zhao Sanqi, the family's hunting dogs were not bad, but they had already been bought by someone else. They bought 2 single-shot rifles, each costing 60 yuan, and then continued heading home. The 2 rifles were a bit old, but they had been well maintained, showing that the owner had taken good care of them. Watching the 2 boys sitting on the cart, not afraid of the cold and fiddling with the guns, Zhao Sanqi couldn't help smacking his lips. If we have some spare cash, we should get a few good dogs. Relying on Hutu alone isn't quite enough. The successful hunt of the black bear greatly boosted Zhao Sanqi's confidence, and the generous rewards made him want to expand. With 3 guns, they could now dare to try hunting wild game they previously wouldn't have dared to provoke. Back in Kaoshan village, Zhang Hongqi secretly called out his younger sister Zhang Fangfang, handed her a bundle of fried dough twists and the cloth, and told her to take them home secretly without letting Zhang Xuanju see. Zhang Fangfang was in tears. "Brother, our dad said he won't recognize you anymore, and you're no longer part of the family. Brother, I don't want the fried dough twists. I want you to come back. Don't listen to his nonsense. I'll always be your brother." Zhang Hongqi was quite open-minded. According to his plan, after a few more trips into the mountains, he would be able to take his younger siblings and mother out. As for that home, let Zhang Xuanju stay there by himself. When luck strikes, good things come one after another. That evening, Aunt Bigfoot specially came to Zhao Sanqi's house for a visit. "Sanqi, your elder brother went to drag some dry wood back for firewood in the afternoon." From a distance, he saw many wild boars behind the meadow. Aunt Bigfoot came to report the news. According to the rules, if they actually hunt the wild boars, they have to give her a share. Zhao Sanqi understood this clearly. Early in the morning, leading Hutu out of the village, Zhang Hongqi and the other 2 headed toward the meadow. The temperature of minus 20-something degrees Celsius turned the breath from their nostrils white. In the extreme cold, just going out was a hardship, let alone venturing into the old forest. So, no matter how much money one could make from patrolling and hunting, few people were jealous. After all, this job wasn't just about suffering. It was also about risking one's life. Since acquiring the 2 single-shot rifles, Zhang Hongqi and Zhao Taiju had hardly put them down. Zhang Hongqi had become familiar with his gun and had quietly taught Zhao Taizhu the essentials of shooting. But marksmanship, in Zhang Hongqi's view, depended entirely on live-fire practice and using plenty of bullets. However, each bullet cost several cents. Who could afford to practice much? After the autumn harvest, there was militia training, but they only fired a few rounds. They had to take it slow. Maybe with time, they would become sharpshooters. As long as the 60 yuan single-shot rifles didn't blow up, Zhang Hongqi would praise them as good guns. But these guns required bolt action. After each shot, they had to reload, which could easily turn them into useless sticks in dangerous moments. So Zhang Hongqi had no choice but to practice reloading techniques, even having a sudden inspiration. When shooting, hold the gun with the left hand, pull the trigger with the right, and at the same time, pre-clip 3 bullets between the fingers. Don't underestimate this seemingly playful technique. Once practiced well, reloading speed could increase several times. At critical moments, being a second or half-second faster could mean the difference between life and death. In the bitterly cold winter, the meadow was covered with ice and snow 2 feet thick. There were some grass hummocks exposed, but wild boars wouldn't bother rooting there unless they were extremely hungry. The ground was frozen rock hard, not much different from stones. Aunt Bigfoot only gave a general direction. Finding the herd of wild boars would depend on Huda's nose. Although Zhao Sanqi only had this one hunting dog, he had carefully selected it and invested a lot of effort in training. Hutu was a green dog. As the old saying goes, green dogs produce lead dogs. This means that among the green dog breed, good hunting dogs are common. A lead dog is the one that leads the pack, directing other hunting dogs on behalf of the hunter. Usually, the task of searching for prey is carried out by the lead dog. Contrary to most people's impressions, a hunting dog's job is not to fight the prey to the death. Its main tasks are to find the prey and hold it at bay. After finding the prey, the lead dog usually leads the other dogs in the pack to attack or surround it, waiting for the hunter to arrive and finish it off with a single shot. The meadow outside Kaoshan village was quite large. Zhang Hongqi and the others looked around, but saw no trace of wild boars. Aunt Bigfoot's husband, who had gone to drag dry wood for firewood, couldn't have gone this far. He estimated that the herd of wild boars was probably near the woods on the east side. Zhao Sanqi thought for a moment and pointed in a direction. Huda sniffed around in the snow but didn't pick up the scent of wild boars. Zhang Hongqi and the others had to continue east along the edge of the meadow. In the process of patrolling and hunting, the most time-consuming part was searching for prey. The greater Xing'an range stretches for thousands of kilometers. The forests radiating from the entire mountain range are vast beyond measure, hiding countless wild animals. But finding these wild animals is no easy task. As they searched along the meadow, Huta suddenly let out a bark indicating it had found the scent of wild game. Then Huta quickly ran forward. Huta found something. You two stay sharp. With a shout from Zhao Sanqi, the 3 of them hurried after Hutu. The snow was shallower at the edge of the meadow, as the flat area allowed the wind to blow the snow away, preventing it from piling up too thick. But once they left the flat ground, the snow was knee-deep, making even walking difficult, let alone jogging. Zhao Sanqi looked up and whistled to call Huda back. Do you see the woods ahead? Around the bend is a sunny slope. I reckon the herd of wild boars is on that sunny slope. Stay quiet and don't make noise. We'll slowly approach. This was him passing on his experience. Zhang Hongqi was indeed a good shot and agile, but on his own, even with a good gun and unlimited ammo, he couldn't find prey. Yeah, we'll listen to you, Uncle. Dad, you're in charge. The 3 of them, with Hutu returning, trudged through the snow. When they rounded the bend, they indeed saw wild boars on the sunny slope. Damn, why so many? Zhao Sanqi was a bit stunned. On the sunny slope were over a dozen wild boars, led by a huge boar. A boar, a male wild boar with tusks, fierce and aggressive. If it charged at a person, its tusks could poke 2 transparent holes right through. Dad, isn't more better? We're going to get rich again. Zhao Tieju's eyes lit up. In his eyes, those weren't wild boars on the sunny slope. They were stacks of 10 yuan notes and sticks of fried dough twists. Taiju, calm down, listen to Uncle. Zhang Hongqi also felt something was off about the herd. There were too many. If it were before they bought the guns, with only one single-shot rifle among the 3, Zhao Sanqi might have just turned around and taken the 2 boys back to the village. It wasn't that he was a coward, but once the number of wild boars increased, it became very dangerous. Every year, in the old forests and around the mountains, there were plenty of unlucky people gored to death by wild boars. Let's go around to the top of the slope. After thinking it over, Zhao Sanqi couldn't bear to let go of such a good opportunity. Normally, to see so many wild boars, they would have to go deep into the old forest. Now, They were practically at their doorstep. It would be a waste not to hunt them. Moreover, now all three of them had guns, unlike before. In Zhao Sanqi's view, even if Zhang Hongqi and Zhao Taizhu couldn't hit anything, just making noise would be enough to boost their morale. Under normal circumstances, wild game would flee upon hearing gunshots. Even if that big boar got aggressive and charged at them, going around to the top of the sunny slope would give them some buffer. Zhao Sanqi was confident he could fire a second shot before that big boar charged up the slope. The three of them, along with the silent and calm Hutu, circled around from the forest behind and climbed up, all of them exhausted. This forest was not large, and the trees were sparse, but the snow was still thicker and softer than outside. Climbing all the way uphill, by the time they reached the spot, the three of them were panting like bellows. After catching their breath, Zhang Hongqi and the others lay directly in the snow, crawling forward in a prone position to a suitable spot. Hutu obediently lay beside Zhao Sanqi, truly a worthy young dog that could lead the pack. Lying at the top of the slope, they saw more than a dozen wild boars digging through the snow on the sunny slope, searching for hazelnuts and acorns beneath. Listen carefully, I'll fire first. You two wait for my command, and when I tell you to shoot, then you pull the trigger. Okay. From close range, they could see clearly. Lying in the snow, Zhang Hongqi spotted on the sunny slope that big boar, weighing at least 300 or 400 jin, leading the group. It used its sharp, sturdy tusks to push aside the thick snow layer. This was to make it easier for the sows following behind to forage. After all, even the thinnest snow on the sunny slope was over 20 centimeters thick, and pushing it open was no easy task. Having more than a dozen females following him already proved the big boar's strength. Wild boars tend to form groups after winter. Once in groups, the males compete for mating rights. Their tusks are as sharp as daggers, good for pushing snow, and just as easy for making holes in their rivals. Such competition often leads to the death of male boars. Only the one that survives to the end can monopolize the females in the group and pass on the best genes. Generally, wild boars conceive in winter and give birth in spring. Right now is the perfect time to hunt wild boars. Why? Because the sows haven't conceived yet. Hunting now curbs the growth of the boar population at the source. As for protecting wildlife, that had no market in 1977. Back then, people prioritized protecting humans first. As for wild animals, kill as many as you can. Better yet, hunt them to extinction. Take wild boars, for example. In one night, they can destroy several acres of freshly plowed fields just to eat the newly planted seeds. If they travel in herds, the damage is even worse. In those days, it was no legend that a herd of wild boars could ruin over 100 acres of newly planted fields in a single night. The vast Northeast, with its sparse population, relied on extensive farming and couldn't afford such destruction. To put it bluntly, every mouthful of food that wild animals waste means one less mouthful for humans. At critical times, a single mouthful of food can save a life. The natural environment back then was simply too good. From time to time, wild animals would emerge from the deep forests. A few years earlier, a person walking alone had to carry a long pole for fear of wolves following behind. In such circumstances, who dared to advocate for protecting these wild animals? They would surely be drowned in the vast ocean of the people. At this moment, the ambush spot of Zhang Hongqi and his companions was over 50 meters from the boar herd. Given the accuracy of the single-shot rifle, this distance was unreliable. But there was no choice. They couldn't get any closer. Wild boars are not as stupid as people imagine. On the contrary, they are very clever. Especially that big boar, which was exceptionally alert. After pushing through the snow with its sharp tusks a few times, it would lift its head and look around. Wild boars have a keen sense of smell and good hearing. If the ambush spot of Zhang Hongqi and the others hadn't been upwind, the big boar would have caught their scent and surely led its sizable harem to flee. Based on Zhao Sanqi's experience, to hit the big boar's head with one shot, they needed to get within 40 meters for full certainty. But such a good opportunity wasn't available now. They could only try to make this shot as accurate as possible. Only then did Zhao Sanqi remove the cotton mitten from his right hand. In the bitterly cold weather, with temperatures around -20 degrees Celsius, no one dared to keep their hands exposed for long, let alone hold an iron object like a gun. So, there weren't many chances to shoot. Bang! Zhao Sanqi, having flexed his fingers, pulled the trigger without any hesitation. The crisp gunshot broke the silence on the sunny slope. Zhang Hongqi and Zhao Taizhu, who had been ready to shoot, saw clearly. Zhao Sanqi's shot hit the big boar right in the head. The tusk on the right side broke off and flew far away. The dozen or so sows immediately scattered in panic. Hutu lunged forward from beside Zhao Sanqi, bursting into fierce barking. Hit! Zhao Taiju jumped high. Since the shot had been fired, there was no need to stay hidden in the snow. The big boar with the broken tusk plunged headfirst into the snow, clearly done for. Zhang Hongqi didn't wait for Zhao Sanqi's command and pulled the trigger as well. Bang! Another crisp gunshot. A blood blossom burst on the head of a fleeing sow, and she fell to the ground motionless. Zhao Sanqi, ignoring everything else, worked the bolt and fired another shot. This shot grazed the rump of a sow, leaving a bloody furrow. The sow, instead of being affected, ran even faster. Damn it! Only then did Zhao Taiju remember he hadn't fired yet. Bang! Beside him, Zhang Hongqi, thanks to the extra 3 bullets pinched between his fingers, reloaded faster than the old hunter Zhao Sanqi. His shot hit a sow in the belly. Intestines and stomach spilled all over the ground. She certainly couldn't run away. But this sow would inevitably spoil, and the already gamey wild boar meat would have an even stronger off flavor. But in those days, no one cared about that. Everyone's stomachs lacked grease. Having meat to eat was already a luxury. Who cared about taste? Fussy. Whatever went into the stomach was good grease. Zhang Hongqi and Zhao Sanqi had each fired 2 shots before Zhao Tieju's single-shot rifle finally went off. Unsurprisingly, the bullet from Zhao Tieju's gun was powerful, blasting a large crater in the snow. For a moment, Zhao Sanqi, fully focused on aiming at the prey, felt an inexplicable sense of frustration. In reality, missing was normal. Someone like Zhang Hongqi, who hit with every shot from the start, was the abnormal one. But by now, no one had time to ponder that. Zhang Hongqi, relying on the bullets pinched between his fingers, fired his 3rd shot even before Zhao Sanqi. However, this shot missed. After all, the fleeing boars had picked up speed and increased the distance. Missing was perfectly normal. Even Zhao Sanqi hadn't expected that last night he had laughed at Zhang Hongqi's method of pinching 3 extra bullets between his fingers, only to witness the effect of that flashy trick today. They would all practice together when they got back. Quick, bleed them and gut them. Zhao Sanqi got up from the snow and prepared to rush down the slope. After all, the 3 of them had fired a bunch of shots, and the boars were fleeing for their lives. There was no chance to hit another. The harvest was still decent. Besides the big boar that Zhao Sanqi had dropped with his first shot, Zhang Hongqi had also hit 2 sows, leaving aside the one with the belly shot. The remaining sow and the big boar needed to be bled and gutted quickly. If delayed too long, the meat would spoil. But just as Zhao Sanqi had walked several meters, the big boar that had been shot in the head actually staggered to its feet again from the snow. Not dead. Seeing the big boar, shot in the head, wobbling to its feet. Not only Zhao Sanqi, who had started running down the slope, but even Zhang Hongqi, still lying in the snow, was startled. The big boar stood in the snow, shook its head, looked up at Zhao Sanqi, who had skidded to a halt and fallen on his backside, sliding down the slope. Its 2 red eyes instantly locked onto the target. Squealing loudly, the wild boar that had stood up again charged at Zhao Sanqi, who had fallen to the ground. How fast can a wild boar run? Anyway, on the thick snow, even if Zhao Sanqi stood upright, he couldn't outrun the charging boar, let alone while sliding on the ground. The more flustered, the more mistakes. Zhao Sanqi, who had slid to the ground, fumbled around but couldn't get up. I don't know what he was thinking, but in the end, he lay on the ground, trying to crawl away on all 4s. A 3 to 400 gene boar charging is not much different from facing a tank. If it actually hit him, no doubt, he'd be dead or crippled. Seeing his father in danger, Zhao Tieju's eyes turned red. With a roar, he grabbed his rifle and charged down the slope too, using the gun barrel like an iron hammer. Putu, who had been chasing the other fleeing boars, also turned around with a growl and rushed toward its master. At the critical moment, Zhang Hongqi pulled the bolt and loaded the last bullet from his fingers into the chamber. Fortunately, neither Zhao Sanqi nor Zhao Taiju blocked the shooting path. Bang! With a crisp gunshot, a bloody hole appeared on the head of the thundering boar. Even going uphill, the boar's speed was not slow. Its terrifying weight gave it immense momentum. After being shot in the forehead, the running boar plunged headfirst into the snow, and its massive body even tumbled forward. Boom! Zhao Sanqi, who had been crawling away from the boar, finally stood up. He saw his son charging down the slope with a rifle, and wanted to wave him back, but before he could shout, he heard a gunshot. Only then did Zhao Sanqi notice that Zhang Hongqi was still lying in the shooting position. Then came the thud of the boar falling and the large clouds of snow it kicked up. The snow splashed all over Zhao Sanqi's head and face. Turning around, he saw the boar, completely flipped over, less than 10 meters away. Zhao Sanqi could even clearly see the boar's testicles, arrogantly exposed in the cold air. Damn, he had cheated death. Dad, are you okay? Are you hurt? Zhao Taizhu, nearly driven mad by fear, hugged Zhao Sanqi from behind like a speeding train, and the two of them tumbled into a roll. At that moment, Hutu also rushed over, constantly biting the boar's carcass. Zhang Hongqi, who had fired his last bullet, let out a long sigh of relief. That was terrifying. Carrying his gun, he also rushed down the slope and joined Zhao Sanqi and his son, who were brushing off snow, to examine the boar that had completely stopped breathing. Only then did they realize why it hadn't died after being shot. The bullet from Zhao Sanqi's shot had indeed hit the boar's head. More precisely, it hit the right side of the boar's face. The powerful bullet not only broke the right tusk, but also shattered half of its face. The right half of the boar's face was completely gone, and you could see its throat through the exposed mouth. But even so, the bullet hadn't hit the forehead squarely, and the boar's brain wasn't destroyed. However, the immense kinetic energy caused it to suffer symptoms like a concussion, and it fainted on the spot. That's why Zhang Hongqi and the others thought the boar was dead. When the boar with half its face missing recovered, it naturally stood up, looked up, and saw Zhao Sanqi rushing toward it. No doubt, it had a huge grudge. Facing the boar with half its face missing, Zhang Hongqi and the others were filled with fear. Who would have thought that after having half its face blown off, the boar's first action upon getting up would be revenge instead of fleeing? Both the boar's tenacious vitality and its vengeful rage sent chills down their spines. But fortunately, Zhang Hongqi still had one bullet left, his aim was accurate enough, and his mental fortitude was strong enough. Otherwise, the three of them might have all died on this sunny slope. But since the danger was over, they had to continue the work. Zhang Hongqi and the others took out their knives, quickly bled and gutted the boars. Hutu, who had shown bravery and loyalty, got a big piece of meat. Although there were over a dozen boars in the group, Zhang Hongqi and his team only killed 3, but the boars had scattered. Especially since the leading boar was dead, the remaining boars would naturally disperse while fleeing. That way, even if they encountered others, they wouldn't pose much of a threat. Don't think that encountering a small, tuskless female boar in the wild is completely safe. Boars are omnivores. Besides eating plants, they also like meat. Especially when alone, if you encounter a group of boars, even without males, you can easily be attacked and likely won't survive. Every year or two, you hear news of someone being eaten by boars. After cleaning all 3 boars, Zhang Hongqi and the others went to the woods behind the slope to gather materials and made a sled. This thing is only useful in winter when there's snow. After all, at -20 to 30 degrees, people slip on the thick snow, let alone a sled with a large contact area with the snow. Zhang Hongqi and the others dragged the sled loaded with boars back to the village, causing another sensation. It had only been a few days since they hunted the bear, and now these 3 had brought back so much game again. They were amazing. Some superstitious folks muttered mysteriously, fearing that Zhao Sanqi was about to have great luck. After all, in everyone's eyes, being able to hunt must all depend on Zhao Sanqi, the old hunter. Even after cleaning, the 3 boars weighed over 400 jin. Naturally, they wouldn't sell all the boar meat to the supply cooperative, they kept some for themselves. As for Aunt Bigfoot, who had tipped them off, they chose the female boar that hadn't gone bad, cut off 2 hind legs, and Zhang Hongqi and Zhao Taizhu each carried one, making a big show of delivering them to Aunt Bigfoot's house. This was also a form of publicity. From now on, when villagers saw any wild animals, the first people they'd think of would be Zhao Sanqi and his team. Amid the lively discussions, old Lady Li, who had gained a bad reputation, began to regret. Her dear grandson had hunted a bear a few days ago and boars today. Although he was just helping Zhao Sanqi carry things, he could still get a lot of meat, right? Her ignorant eldest son had insisted on severing ties with his grandson. All that meat would go to waste, wouldn't it?